Yeah, hey, we're here with Mark, who's running for district attorney. Uh, Primaries are next week, Tuesday, September 12th. Mark's been joining us for the whole rally since Barclays, so would love to get his thoughts and opinions about criminal justice reform and things related to police brutality. You know, how you
Yeah,
can
I mean,
introduce yourself.
yeah, Marc Fliedner, MARC, and everything here fits together. We start at Atlantic. I mean, we start at Barclay. We're heading to the Bedford Armory, where all of these gentrification issues are impacting on the lives of black and brown people every day. And it feeds into this sense of that they're completely disconnected from the system, God knows law enforcement, including the DA's office, everything that should be there to assist, and that their communities are being stolen from them. And so the police brutality stuff fits in so much. I've got to point out, if you don't mind me saying it, that we're having this beautiful, big ass protest, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger, and then we start moving, and then the police are here on me, and that was when chants that said things that were anti police came out, and only then, because you got this sense of that you were really being like actually physically oppressed in the moment, and that you were being treated like a child, or you're being treated like somebody that could not be expected to simply engage in beautiful, peaceful protests. And I think it's really important that people understand what that feels like, right? And here I am, the most privileged skin in the group, and if it creeped me out, I can only imagine, right?
Intimidation, that we were experiencing at some point simply for marching peacefully by the police, and
Yeah, it was strategic. It was obviously the plan that we needed to be treated that way, and whether individual police officers buy in, which they probably don't, because some of them have beautiful souls, the system, the institution, decided that was going to be designed today, and this is a perfect example of what goes wrong. It's so wrongheaded. It's so culturally incompetent and insensitive and disrespectful to all of us that are trying to have a voice. I was talking to you, if you don't mind me saying, we were talking a little bit before about how I feel like there has to be a civil disobedience review unit, so that when we have a really big protest like this, if people are arrested, that those cases are evaluated really fast and move through the system. And if something messed up happened, that our Law Enforcement Investigations Bureau handles it right away, so we can get the story right and get it prosecuted if need be. So yeah, I mean, we also have to look at issues of police in the schools and police in the housing developments, because it's another version of what it feels like when somebody's standing beside you and deciding in advance that because of your color or because of your poverty or whatever it is, you are going to do something that's going to result in me criminalizing you. That's the problem. Police need to be out of our schools. They need to be out of our housing developments, babysitting and oppressing. And those are the kinds of things that I feel passionately about. My question is going to be, how can I make it work in the context of the DA's office? But there is a lot that can be done. And the bully pulpit itself is valuable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great to hear the other side, because we're here like as grassroots members of the community, and we're protecting ourselves from police violence and the systemic violence by relying on our neighbors and relying on people, and like groups like Ban Gentrifying, who are pulling together lawyers and pulling together media makers like Jacob and myself, and you're on the other end of that. How can you speak more to the systemic aspects that maybe some of the viewers might not be aware of? Why are those things important, and how did they connect to systemic oppression of
You mean the
largely
housing and school issues that
yeah, they're the ones that you brought up.
It's just this institutionalized racism that comes in part from internalized racism of individuals who are setting the structure. And until we do a legitimate job of making sure that all the people that govern have a reality check on the institutionalized racism, we're not going to get anywhere. It's so interesting. You touched on something that I want to say. I've been to a lot of meetings where folks in great new neighborhood groups are getting together and saying, last week I saw an incident on my block. We as neighbors knew how to de-escalate it, but then somebody called the police, and then it got out of hand. And as somebody who has watched video after video after video, and as when I was chief of civil rights right before I left the office, and also talked to witness after witness, I've seen so many times that police response escalated things. So often it was caused by somebody trying to assert their rights that they have to know, as in, let me get the shield number, let me get some information, or let me stand up and say, no, you're actually not entitled to do that to me. And then it escalates from there because the police officer gets agitated, it rises to anger, it ends up in violence. So you've got community members who are saying, we saw that go down. We're okay. We got it. We can handle this. The police intervention actually took it to a terrible place. And the fact that there are people stepping up and wanting to learn strategies to do that is something that the DA's office needs to embrace. And actually, frankly, ultimately, law enforcement's got to embrace too, because it's going to happen. And it is going to make their lives better, their lives easier. And then what I'm concerned about is our lives easier and your lives safer. You know, everybody that's out there, particularly people, when I say I mean people of color, because I can't see it from the same place. I just can't, you know, I'm not been there. I'm gay and I feel certain things in terms of disenfranchisement, but beyond that, I get this free pass and I see how the free pass works every single day, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great entry point, you know, to either end, or if there's any other particular issues that you're really, you know, feeling passionate about.
All I want to say is that this has got so big today that we're like, this can be done. There's a tendency right now to say the system is so messed up that I need to operate around it, I need to walk away, I need whatever. It can be done. I'm not saying the system doesn't need to be broken down and started from scratch, but when you've got this kind of energy from people who are loving their communities and want to make it work, there is real reason for optimism. And I don't want to sound all like gooey about this, but this gives me hope. And I see it in your eyes too. So let's do it. Let's do it. You know. So
I just think we're at a different paradigm shift in collective consciousness, personally. You know, and I use that word.
yeah.
Maybe spiritually, but also politically, and they're connected. You know, I think that we're at a tipping point where, you know, the system isn't working. It's not working for the middle class. The middle class is largely by and gone, and you know, we're becoming a police state, and this is not what a community is. I'm a lifelong New Yorker, and I saw what community looked like in New York growing up here.
Right.
You know, my babysitter didn't speak English, and she was, you know, Japanese, and like we grew up around Haitian community members, and they took care of us, and we all took care of each other, and you know, I think that's what a real community is. But you look around in major cities all over the country, the fabric of community itself is at stake, and I think that's where the tipping point is personally, and people are waking up and getting involved because
and government structures are not tapping into what's innately here. People who grew up in Brooklyn, or people who choose to live in Brooklyn, we do it because we love all of the diversity, we love the sense of community, and we decided it's what we wanted. And by the way, I got to tell you, I love that you don't shy away from the spiritual piece, and I use the word love. You know, I use the word love. It's there. It's here. And
my last name's Salam, which means peace. So.
Right? So, all right, let's just, you know, I mean, those are words that we need to use more often. And I guess more importantly, we need to live them more often, right? And that's the bottom line. So, respect. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for speaking to us, and more importantly, thank you for being out here and, you know, walking with us. And
wouldn't have missed it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have missed it. All right.
All right, Mark.
Keep fighting the fight.
Thank you.
All
There
right.
is growing anger and frustration in this country